Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of What the Field, a place where the environment matters. I'm Emmeline.
And I am Roman. Thank you, Emmeline, for the intro. Today we're honored and we're joined by Professor Iñaki Hormaza from the CSIC, the Spanish Center for Superior Research, or Centro Superior de Investigaciones Científicas. Iñaki works at mainland Europe's very only subtropical research institute. Is that correct, Iñaki?
That's correct, yes.
Brilliant. And we will be talking about good avocados and bad avocados.
Iñaki, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
So maybe we should start by learning a little bit about you. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm a scientist working with subtropical food crops in southern Spain, in Malaga, in an institute that belongs to the Spanish Council for Scientific Research. And what we do is research on subtropical food crops.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. How long have you been at the CSIC? Like, how did you end up there? Like, what's your background?
Yeah, okay. I studied biology in Spain, and then I got a fellowship to go to the US. So I got a PhD in California. And then I came back to Spain, and I started to work in temperate food crops in Zaragoza, in northern Spain. And then there was a call for a person to lead the subtropical food crop research in Malaga. And I went there, and I've been there for 20 years.
So is it fair to say you got used to the sun in California and you missed it a lot, and then you went down south to Malaga?
You could say in that way, yes.
Brilliant. Can you tell us a bit about your daily life as a world-class scientist in one of Europe's leading institutions? What is the everyday life of a scientist?
Yeah, so as a scientist, what we have to do is to develop new knowledge. So that's our mission. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I've been trying to do for the last 20 years. So what we do is we have, of course, a group of people working with me. So we have several lines of research, and every day we discuss things, and we advance in knowledge, and we try to advance mainly in how we can improve the way we grow tropical fruit crops in Europe.
Excellent. And I think that's actually the primary reason why we asked you to come here, and you're very generous with your time and come all the way to Madrid to be with us today.
Exactly.
And we wanted to talk a bit about avocados and other tropical fruits, since avocados have been sort of controversial in the past few years. Isn't that right, Emmeline?
Yes, indeed. There's been a lot of coverage on avocados. There's even been terms such as blood avocado or green gold, because it's been apparently a new source of richness to some and of detriment to others, or to the detriment of others, let's say. And on Roman, what have you heard, for example?
No, very much. I mean, in the past few years, not only because of perhaps the water consumption issue associated to avocados, but also the social implications of the avocado culture in places like Mexico or even Peru sometimes. And well, Iñaki, you've been on the ground. I know for a fact that you've been traveling a lot. Maybe not so much in the past couple of years for a reason I can't get my head around. But maybe you can share a bit your experience on that regard. What's your take on the issue? What's happening outside of Europe with the avocado culture?
Yeah, okay. One interesting thing about avocado is that avocado is grown in more than 50 countries around the world. And then with different climates, with different problems. And one thing that happens with avocado is that maybe a particular problem in one part of the world goes all the way to the whole crop of the avocado. And I don't think I think that's not correct. And we have to focus in if there are problems, and there are problems in some parts of the world, we have to focus on the problems in that particular case. But we cannot expand that to the avocado business everywhere. So the problems in Spain are very different from the problems in Mexico or in Colombia or in Peru or in Chile or in Kenya. So.
And may I ask, what exactly are the problems? For example, in Mexico. Mexico is a much cited negative example. They say cartels are involved in both the avocado cultivation and the trade. It's basically become the new cocaine. in a sense, and I think this is where the term blood avocado comes from, actually. We've heard about communities being displaced for the sake of avocado crops. We also heard about elephant displacement in Kenya. I see you laughing, so I'm assuming you have some opinions here.
No,
what's the issue here?
Yeah, Mexico, for example. Mexico is the main exporter of avocados in the world, with a big difference with the other countries. And most of the Mexican production goes to the U.S. And Mexico has been producing avocados for ages.
Yeah.
So maybe there could be a particular problem in some part of the state of Michoacán with some particular cartel, but I don't think that you can say that the whole avocado business in Mexico is run by the cartel. So you cannot generalize those particular problems to not to the whole country, and even worse to the avocado production as well.
Iñaki, how does the global avocado trade look like? What are the biggest producers? Which are the biggest consumers?
Yeah, so they are, as consumers, mainly the US and Europe as a whole.
Yeah.
And then the main producer is Mexico. And then after Mexico, it would be Peru, Chile. Colombia is also increasing the production. One thing is that when we talk about avocado, we are really talking about Hass avocado, because there are countries like Indonesia and other countries with tropical climates that produce a lot of West Indian avocados, which are those big avocados that are mainly consumed at the local level. But those avocados are very important in some countries, like Dominican Republic is the main the country with the highest per capita consumption of avocado.
Interesting.
But local.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when we're talking about avocado, but we're talking about the market of Hass avocados in the market worldwide, mainly for the U.S. market and the European market.
Can you maybe explain what Hass avocados are to those of us listening that might not know what Hass avocado is, and difference, or what's the difference between Hass and a normal avocado?
Well, the thing is that the Hass history is very interesting, because the Hass avocado was appeared in California in the late 1920s, and it was a man called Rudolf Hass who has a plantation of avocados. And then at that time the main avocado variety was called Fuerte, which is a green skin avocado, and still is cultivated in some parts of the world, and we also grow Fuerte in Spain, for example. So he had an orchard of Fuerte, and then one of the trees, there was a problem because with fruit trees you have to graft the variety on a rootstock, okay? So there was a problem with that, and then he had a tree from the rootstock, and there was something different, and there was a tree producing black avocados, which at that time was not the standard avocado, because the standard avocado was green.
Green, is it?
Yeah, so he was almost ready to
throw it away.
Yeah,
right?
to take it away, but then the family tried those fruits, and they liked the taste of the fruit, and eventually he even patented the variety. And with time I mean till the 60s and 70s, Hass avocado was not the main cultivar grown in California. And then after that, the cultivation of that particular variety expanded worldwide. It has several advantages for the grower and for the consumer. For example, you know when the fruit is ready to eat, because it changes color to black. Whereas with a green skin avocado, you have to touch it and see if it's soft. And also it produces well, so and you can cultivate that variety in different parts of the world.
And Iñaki, not many people actually know that avocados are also grown in Europe. Is that correct? And particularly where you're currently living? Yeah,
exactly, because the origin of avocado is the highlands of Mexico and Guatemala, and that climate is a humid climate, but with a very mild climate. So it's very similar to the climate in southern Spain. Basically, you need an area free of temperatures below zero, and we can do that in southern Spain. So there was some avocados in Spain from a long time ago, but the commercial production started in the 1970s, and then the boom was in the 80s and 90s of the last century. And yes, we have avocados in Spain, mainly in Malaga and Granada, in the south of Spain, but also in the Valencian community, in the east of the country, and also in southern Portugal.
Interesting.
But, yeah, and also in the Canary Islands.
Yep.
Okay, but the main production is in Malaga and Granada in southern Spain.
And in southern Spain, is there enough water for avocado cultivation? Because southern Spain is famed to be very hot and in quite a dry climate. No, isn't there a problem with droughts?
Yeah, that's a problem for any crop that we want to grow in southern Spain. And the current models of climate change indicate that in the future that's going to be worse, not only in southern Spain, but it's going to be worse in the whole Mediterranean basin. So yes, that's a problem not only for avocado, it's a problem for all the crops that we grow in that area, which the climate is very good because of the temperatures, but of course we have problems with the availability of water for irrigation.
Iñaki, I imagine when you have such harsh conditions for growing avocados, perhaps you need to better manage the available resources you have, right? And I know that you're working on research that tries to develop the productivity of the avocados, the avocado trees that you're growing in Malaga and also elsewhere, right? So
Correct.
Every single grower can benefit from the research you're doing. Can you tell us a bit more about the work you're doing in that regard?
Yeah, so we're trying to reduce the water footprint of in this case, of avocado and also other crops that we are working with. And we can do that with different ways. And we're doing research to do that, to reduce the water footprint of avocado in Spain and elsewhere, because water is a problem in different countries of the world. The first one is to increase productivity, because at the end, the water footprint is going to depend on how many fruits you can produce per hectare. So we've been working for a long time in trying to increase productivity of avocados. And we've been successful. And we've been working a lot with pollination and trying to increase the diversity of pollinating insects, because at the end you need insects to pollinate the flowers and produce
You need we have lots of them here.
Exactly, so you need them.
Right.
Because if not, you have no fruits. Okay, so that's one of the main issues we've been working with, and we've been making several good research on that. So that's one thing: increase productivity and the insects and management of the crop. Then you have to optimize the water you have, and then for that you can use different mechanisms of different systems to reduce the waste of water. Avocado has very superficial roots, so you have to irrigate mainly 30-40 centimeters. All the water that goes below 40 centimeters is lost for the avocado, because the roots are on the surface of the soil. So you have to use systems of irrigation that maximize the water on the upper part of the soil. And with that you can reduce a lot of water consumption, because if you have water that goes below ground, you're losing that water and you're wasting water. Okay, and also you have to know how is the status of the tree and the soil in terms of water availability, and depending on that you can increase or reduce the amount of water that you apply. And also you can do breeding, and breeding means developing new varieties and new rootstocks. As I said before, avocado and most fruit tree crops, they have a rootstock that has the roots, and then you graft the scion, the variety, on that rootstock. So we're working in developing new rootstocks that are more tolerant to drought conditions, and they use less water. So if you combine all those things, then you can reduce the water footprint of avocado and of any other crop.
And what would you say is the current reality in Spain, for example? What is being, from everything you mentioned, what are the aspects that are today being applied in all of the avocado farms that you know of, at least?
Well, there's been a big change in the last 30 years in how we irrigate not only avocado but other crops in Spain. I would say that now the growers in Spain, 100% of them use drip irrigation, compared to some other systems before that used a lot of more water than that.
Could you give us some numbers here? Like, what's the comparison? Like, how much water would they use before and how much water are they using now per kilogram of fruit?
That's difficult to say, because that depends also on how well you manage your orchard and how is the productivity of your orchard. But I can say that maybe you have in the last 30 years the water use has been decreased by maybe 40% easily in avocado, and I think we can do a lot of progress still more in the future.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Because Roman and I were just talking yesterday about water use in general and different kinds of crops and also in the meat industry, because a lot of people won't eat avocados just because of the water issue. I mean, it's a pretty legitimate reason, because they're saying, no, this consumes way too much water while they're sitting there eating their steak. So we thought it was actually quite interesting, because I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but obviously not. There's a lot of water that goes into the production of livestock, of products such as meat. But there's also a lot of water that goes into the production of other types of crops. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for example, in our case, in my research institution, we are producing avocados with, I could say that maybe we use 400, 500 liters per kilo of avocados. And that would seem a lot. Well, that's less than oranges or less than apples. And for example, to produce a kilo of meat, you need 15,000 liters of water.
Wow. Yeah.
And for rice also, you need more than 5,000 liters of water for a kilo of rice. And not only that, avocado, you see the fruit has about 70% of water content. You compare that with an orange, which is 92% is water. So in terms of what you are getting from the tree, I don't think that avocado is one of the worst crops in terms of water efficiency.
Interesting. And would you say there's a stark difference between the water consumption of the avocado culture, perhaps in the south of Spain, or the avocado culture in Mexico or Peru, in terms of water management?
Yes. In some parts of Mexico, you can grow avocados with no irrigation, and also in Colombia. That's okay. There is another problem with that, because when you have a lot of rain, maybe you have problems with fungi, pests and diseases, so you have to treat them to avoid that. And also, that's very different, for example, with situation in Peru. In Peru, avocado is mainly grown on the desert, by the coast. You get basically no rain, so you have to apply a lot of water there, from water that you get from the Andes, to irrigate that part of the country.
So I take you do need a certain chemical treatment of the fruit post-harvest, right? So it can be preserved until it reaches the final consumer. Is that correct?
In some countries, yes, because there is one thing with the fungi, because you have a lot of humidity and rainy conditions, and also you have to take into account that when you export avocados from Peru or Mexico or any country in the Americas to Europe, they have to be in the ship for several weeks, and if you have some problems with fungi in the origin, then that's going to be worse when the avocados reach Europe. So very often they have to treat the avocados with fungicides to avoid decay of fruit.
And the environmental impact doesn't stop at the water consumption, right? Because there's also a transportation from the impact of bringing perhaps fruits from South America all the way to Europe, that perhaps you don't encounter when you're dealing with fruits produced in Europe. Like perhaps it's fair to say avocados grown in Europe can be considered as local crops, as from a European's perspective.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because when you're talking about sustainability, you have to keep in mind different things. One is, of course, water footprint, but you have also the carbon footprint due to the crop, and also to the transport, and also the social impact of what you're growing and where you're growing that, and what's the social impact in the local communities. Avocados grown in Europe, and say Spain, Italy, or Portugal, they are very close to the consumer. So the carbon footprint is very low compared to the avocados that we import from America, Asia, or Africa. So that's very important, I think, and that's important for the consumer, because we all want to reduce our carbon footprint in the end.
I think something else that me and Emmeline were discussing is, and I'm glad you mentioned the social impact, because it can be perceived, or we've been told by many of our crop farmers tell us, like, it's not okay that the lands of the south of Spain are dedicated exclusively to tropical fruit cultivation, right? Because it creates a dependency on monocultures, and it also breaks down with traditional agricultural practices. Isn't that right, Emmeline?
Exactly. They're saying, oh, but avocados are not an endemic fruit in Spain, and this is breaking exactly with like the traditional landscape. What would Malaga look like today without avocado and even mango cultivations?
Yeah, that's very interesting also. What is the traditional landscape of Malaga?
Yeah, this was what I was going to ask you, since you live there.
100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. So what's traditional? Because most of the crops that we are used to eat in Europe are not European.
Yes.
So when everything started. So I can tell you how was the landscape in the last century in Malaga. And it was a dry, no irrigation. And mainly in the case of fruit crops, it was mainly almond and olive.
But olives were brought by the Phoenicians, so it's not really endemic to Spain either. No. The olive tree.
not even the almonds.
But
there were almonds and olives with no irrigation, and we're talking about climate change, and we're talking about reducing. We are getting less and less water by rain. So that's a problem also for dry for cultivation of olives or almonds under dry conditions. And then you have to compete with other areas in Spain and in other countries that are irrigating olives and almonds. So at the end, you're telling the farmer, okay, you can grow only olives and almonds here with no irrigation, and you're going to live there, or you're going to emigrate to the city. Because at the end, if we're thinking about the rural areas in Spain and in other parts of Europe, you have to keep the population there, but you have to give them a living to stay there. And I don't think that you can survive in the Mediterranean region, in those dry areas with no irrigation and cultivating crops that are not as profitable as they are in other parts of the country.
And they're not endemic either by the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but Iñaki, does that have to be done at the expense of the environment, right? Because soil degradation is real in those areas. Isn't that right?
Well, agriculture is going to have an impact on the environment always.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to that is to combine both things. I think you can do agroecology. I think you can combine agriculture with environment. I think you can have forest patches in between your crops, and that's something that in the European Union, in the new system of the agricultural production in Europe, we're going to move towards that.
But do you think the answer here is basically moving or converting all lands to organic?
Well, that depends on the crop. I think organic production is feasible in avocado, for example, in Spain. It's not very difficult to do it. In fact, because I don't think we have to treat the avocados with any pesticide or any product like that. So I think organic production of avocados is easy, and many growers are producing organic avocados. We are doing that in our research station. All our avocados are organic.
Is biodiversity important in the preservation of the soils? Like, can we do something from the varieties we're cultivating in order to perhaps mitigate the impact of agriculture?
Yeah, in fact, I'm a scientist, and one of my main lines of research is diversity of tropical fruit crops. And I've been studying that in the centers of origin of these crops in America, Asia, and Africa, with the idea of preserving the local varieties for the future. because sometimes, for example, with the case of Hass avocado, we are growing now Hass avocados in Mexico or in Guatemala, which is the center of origin of the avocados. Maybe we are displacing local varieties. And once you lose a local variety, that's lost forever. So one of our objectives as a scientist is trying to preserve those varieties and build collections of those varieties, because you never know if there is a new pest or a new disease where the gene for resistance is going to be. Maybe it's in a local landrace in one of those countries. So that's very important. So we're trying to do that, and we're doing that. The thing is that, as I said before, most of the avocados consumed in the world are Hass, which is a single variety. So we are doing now like a monoculture of just a single variety of avocado. And I don't think that's correct. I think we can grow Hass, but there are a lot of varieties that we can grow also with Hass. In our research center, we have more than 100 varieties of avocados.
Wow.
And in Spain, we can grow, we can have avocados all year round with just 4 or 5 varieties. So that means that for the European consumer, we can have local avocados all year round with just 4 or 5 varieties. Imagine with 100 that we have.
Do you have any favorite? Because I'm assuming it's not the Hass variety.
Well, Hass is okay. I like Hass in March or April.
Yeah, when it's the season for it, right?
Exactly. But I like Reed in July, for example, or I like Fuerte in December or January. So these
so you go with the seasons.
Yes. But it's easy to do. Just 4 or 5 varieties.
Yeah,
is enough.
I think we have ourselves as consumers a responsibility towards learning what's seasonal, right? Which avocado variety should I be eating at what time of the year? What else do you think the consumer should do in order to perhaps mitigate the impact of their consumption when consuming tropical fruits?
I mean, tropical fruits are exotic, and they are mainly brought from foreign countries, and there is a high carbon footprint linked to the transport of those fruits. Our objective is to try to grow tropical fruits in Europe, and then we will be closer to the consumer, and that will be an alternative for the farmers mainly in southern Europe, to provide exotic fruits locally to the European consumer.
Can you tell us what your future projection is for tropical agriculture in Europe? For example, can I expect to have pineapple grown in Spain anytime soon, or do we need to rely on overseas countries for certain, types of tropical fruits for climate reasons?
There is pineapple production in the Canary Islands, for example, and also the bananas there. And I think this is feasible, and we have dozens of crops that we grow in our research station. The thing is that avocado and mango are profitable for the growers in Spain, so they don't feel pushed to try something different, because they are getting
a fair
return from those crops. No, but I mean, we can do it, and I think there is an opportunity for some growers to try to diversify and have other crops that can be interesting. I'm talking about lychee, longan, star fruit, lucuma,
dragon fruit, perhaps.
Dragon fruit. There are some growers growing dragon fruit also in Spain.
It's my favorite, actually.
Yeah.
Really? I think they taste like nothing.
I love it.
Oh, but there are different varieties also.
I haven't ever tried any that tasted like something.
Yeah, there are some varieties.
Just like chewing ones.
There are some varieties with the red flesh, which are pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually my favorite.
Well, I think as long as we could still be talking.
We could spend hours talking with you, Iñaki.
Yes.
It's been an utter pleasure having you today here with us. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights, for sharing your experience. More than 20 years of research. Trying to summarize that in 30 minutes is very complicated. But yeah, thank you so much for being with us. It's absolute pleasure.
Yes,
thank you for having
me
here.
We hope you enjoyed this little field trip into the world of tropical agriculture. And
until next time.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye.